Greg Meeks tears into the Secretary of State, a reckoning between who Marco Rubio used to be and who he's become. Once upon a time, Senator Rubio was the Republican voice who warned America about the dangers of unchecked executive power. He spoke with conviction about freedom, democracy, and the moral duty of the United States to lead with integrity, not intimidation. He built his reputation on principle. But that version of Rubio, that statesman who once championed democracy abroad and accountability at home, is gone. In his place, as Meeks powerfully laid out, stands a Secretary of State who has presided over the slow dismantling of the very ideals he once defended.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Rubio, I'm glad you are finally before this committee. Your testimony actually comes long after the State Department, under your leadership, took actions without required congressional consultation or that were contrary to the law. But I guess it's better late than never. But let me be clear, showing up months after the fact and refusing to stay until every member has questioned you for 5 minutes as entitled to under House rules are not the standards to which we hold the Secretary of State. Mr. Secretary, I've known you for a while, and I respected very much Senator Rubio, even when we disagreed. Senator Rubio was a principled statesman. Secretary Rubio, however, as we've seen in the past few months, is something different entirely. As a senator, you spoke often and forcefully about the dangers of executive overreach. You warned America not to lose its moral clarity or sacrifice democratic principles for short-term gain. Senator Rubio recognized that we cannot allow the executive branch to unilaterally determine the direction of the United States foreign policy without accountability to Congress. Secretary Rubio is doing precisely what Senator Rubio feared, withholding congressional appropriated funds, stonewalling oversight, and acting as if laws passed by this body are optional. Secretary Rubio has presided over the dismantling and destruction of everything Senator Rubio once defended. So although you may be the Secretary of State, the acting head of USAID, the National Security Advisor, the Archivist of America, the empire you have stumbled upon is not one of influence, sir. It is a kingdom of ash. So I ask, was it worth it? Was it worth it to allow the near extension of U.S. foreign assistance and USAID, which Senator Rubio said, and I quote, is a very cost-effective way not only to export our values and our example, but to advance our security and our economic interests? And lie is exactly what this administration has done again and again. Each time Elon Musk and his department of arsonists brag and mislead the American public about massively inflated savings or lie about the programs they have cut and their purpose, they're not telling you about the food that rotted on the shelves while people went hungry, or the medicine that was undistributed to children needlessly suffering, or the trust that was lost by your actions. But I believe you know better, because you've said as much, and yet here we are. In 2022, Senator Rubio warned about the urgent and growing threat posed by China and called for a fully funded State Department and USAID. Senator Rubio wrote that soft power tools and alliances were vital to our national security. And today, Secretary Rubio is here to defend an 84% cut of the foreign affairs budget. How does hollowing out our State Department and dismantling USAID help us compete with China? How does the America Alone budget project American strength? On human rights, the contrast is even starker. Senator Rubio built his political brand on the cause of freedom and dignity. You condemned autocrats in Caracas, Havana, and Beijing for silencing dissent. But Secretary Rubio, he looks the other way when strongmen commit similar abuses. Secretary Rubio even defied a Supreme Court order to facilitate the return of a wrongly detained spouse of an American citizen. And when Senator Rubio became the first Hispanic American to serve as Secretary of State, he made sure to pull the ladder up behind him. In the name of dismantling efforts to making hiring and promotion fair, as you call it, wokeness, you have unlawfully dismantled programs designed to address decades of historical exclusion. These are not political experiments. They were congressionally supported efforts rooted in bipartisan recognition that our diplomatic corps must reflect the diversity and the strength of the nation it represents abroad. These are initiatives that Senator Rubio supported. You replaced experienced career employees with ideologues and political loyalists. Under your watch, sir, America's diplomatic and development corps have suffered the greatest brain drain in history, and America has been weakened and made more isolated by the actions of an administration that has abandoned its allies, cozied up to dictators, and conducted a foreign policy driven not by interests of the American people, but in support of the personal enrichment of the president and his family. And with that, I yield back.
Meeks doesn't just call him out for mismanagement or negligence. He accuses him of betrayal. Betrayal of Congress, betrayal of law, betrayal of America's moral clarity. Let's unpack that. As Secretary of State, Rubio has apparently overseen massive cuts to USAID, America's global development agency, gutting the programs that feed the hungry, educate children, and provide medical aid in war-torn regions. We're talking about an 84% cut to the foreign affairs budget. 84%. Now, Meeks isn't just talking numbers, he's talking values. Because every dollar cut from diplomacy is a dollar handed to chaos. Every canceled program weakens the partnerships that keep America safe, respected, and influential on the world stage. And it's not just about budgets. Meeks reminds the country that Rubio once fought for a diverse diplomatic corps that reflected the strength and breadth of America itself, only to now dismantle those very programs in the name of fighting wokeness. Let's call that what it is, political theater dressed up as reform. And Meeks doesn't let him hide behind bureaucratic excuses. He points out how under Rubio's leadership, America has cozied up to dictators, undermined allies, and turned its back on human rights. Rubio, who once spoke out against authoritarianism, is now serving an administration that flirts with it. That's the heart of Meeks' fury, the moral inversion. The man who warned against executive overreach is now practicing it. The senator who defended democracy is now enabling its erosion. So when Meeks asks, was it worth it? That's not just a rhetorical jab. It's a gut punch. It's a question about legacy, about conscience, about what happens when ambition overtakes conviction. And it forces us, the audience, the citizens, to ask the same question. Was it worth it to trade credibility for proximity to power? Was it worth it to weaken America's standing just to satisfy the political whims of one man? Was it worth it to betray the very ideals you once claimed to defend? Because while the cameras roll and the headlines fade, the damage to America's global reputation is real and it's lasting. At its core, this exchange between Meeks and Rubio isn't just a partisan clash. It's a moral confrontation between who we say we are as a nation and what we're actually doing. Greg Meeks didn't just challenge a Secretary of State. He challenged a man to remember his own words, his own standards, his own reflection in the mirror of history. And as Meeks yielded back his time, it wasn't resignation. It was a reminder. Time may run out in a hearing, but accountability doesn't. So the question stands, and it's one we all have to answer in our own way. Was it worth it? If we're serious about moral leadership, if we believe that America should be a force for good, then this moment cannot pass unnoticed because silence is complicity. And if we don't speak for those who can't, then who are we? So share this, talk about it, ask your representatives where they stand. Because what happens in Washington doesn't just echo through the halls of power, it reverberates through every corner of the world where America once stood as a symbol of hope. And right now, hope is what's on the line.